The Orinoco River Basin, a vast green lung of South America, holds a paradox of immense natural beauty and destructive human ambition. This region, stretching across southern Venezuela, has always been synonymous with resource wealth, but none have fueled conflict and desire quite like gold. For centuries, the earth here has been systematically opened, first by hopeful settlers, then by organized corporations, and now, increasingly, by desperate informal miners. This history is not merely one of extraction. It is a profound study in the cause and effect relationship between economic collapse, environmental degradation, and state-sanctioned chaos. We begin our journey where the colonial dreams of El Dorado first clashed with indigenous realities, tracing a line of exploitation that accelerates violently into the 21st century. The initial discovery of gold in the Guayana Shield didn't fulfill the legendary promise of El Dorado, yet it established a permanent scar on the landscape. Spanish conquistadors, driven by insatiable mercantilism, initiated rudimentary mining operations, relying heavily on forced indigenous labor. While large-scale extraction was hampered by dense jungle and disease, the precedent was set. This land was defined by its mineral potential, not its ecology or its inhabitants. This early artisanal approach, using simple sluices and pans, represented the first cause in a long chain of ecological harm, normalizing the view of the jungle as a resource to be aggressively harvested, rather than preserved. This laid the historical groundwork for all subsequent rushes, linking the region's prosperity directly to the fluctuation of global metal prices. The mid-19th century brought the first true industrial gold boom to Venezuela, centered around the legendary mines of El Callao. Unlike the small, dispersed operations of the colonial era, this period saw the arrival of foreign capital, primarily British and French, introducing stamp mills, railroads, and deep shaft mining. This transformation was a critical turning point, shifting the cause from individual hopefuls to powerful corporations. It created a temporary, bustling multicultural economy, drawing labor from the Caribbean and beyond. However, as the rich surface deposits dwindled and Venezuela's focus shifted decisively towards oil in the 20th century, these organized operations collapsed, leaving behind ghost towns, sophisticated yet abandoned infrastructure, and a workforce trained only in deep extraction, priming the stage for a return to informality. As the 20th century progressed, the Venezuelan state became overwhelmingly dependent on its oil reserves, sidelining gold mining as a major national priority. This effect created a vacuum in the remote Orinoco regions. Without large corporate oversight or consistent government regulation, small-scale, artisanal mining surged, utilizing increasingly crude and destructive methods. The initial cause here was economic neglect, compounded by the vast distance from Caracas. These miners, often indigenous or rural laborers, revived the tradition of manual labor, but introduced dangerous new tools like high-pressure water cannons and, critically, mercury. The informality fostered independence, but lacked environmental safeguards, setting a dangerous precedent for the unchecked destruction that would characterize the later decades. The dramatic, precipitous collapse of Venezuela's oil-based economy starting in the 2010s served as the most powerful recent catalyst for the gold crisis. Hyperinflation and mass unemployment drove millions of citizens, including professionals and former oil workers, into the only viable survival economy remaining: mining. This immediate cause created an unprecedented influx into the Guayana Shield, transforming small mining communities overnight into sprawling, anarchic settlements. Gold, easily convertible and globally valuable, became the de facto currency of survival. The need for quick income directly translates into highly destructive, short-term extraction techniques, resulting in immediate and widespread deforestation and contamination, accelerating the cycle of poverty and resource depletion. In 2016, the government formalized the expansion of gold exploitation with the creation of the Arco Minero del Orinoco, AMO. This decree opened up 112,000 square kilometers, an area larger than Cuba, to large-scale, often foreign extraction projects. The stated cause was to diversify the national economy away from oil. The immediate effect was to legitimize the presence of both state-affiliated military forces and illegal armed groups who operate as intermediaries. This official recognition brought chaos under a veneer of legality, intensifying conflict over territories, particularly those traditionally belonging to indigenous communities. It essentially transformed the former informal trade into a hyper-regulated yet structurally lawless industry controlled by powerful non-state actors operating with implicit state consent. The most devastating and pervasive effect of the accelerating gold rush is the environmental catastrophe unfolding in the rainforest and river systems. Mercury amalgamation, the cheapest and easiest way for artisanal miners to separate gold, has poisoned vast stretches of the Caroni and Orinoco rivers. Mercury vapor is released into the air, and sludge contaminates the water, affecting the entire food chain, including the local fish population, a primary food source. Furthermore, the relentless process of open-pit mining requires massive deforestation, stripping away critical biodiversity and causing irreparable soil erosion. Scientific studies show alarming levels of mercury contamination among regional populations, demonstrating a direct, irreversible consequence of unchecked extraction practices. The proliferation of mining has become inextricably linked to violence and the dominance of organized criminal and armed non-state groups, known locally as sindicatos. These groups enforce brutal order, controlling access to mines, dictating prices, and imposing their own taxes on miners. The resulting effect is a collapse of formal civil authority and widespread human rights abuses, including extortion, forced labor, and massacres. Indigenous communities, such as the Paimon and the Yanomami, find their ancestral lands invaded, their cultures destabilized, and their peoples subject to violence and disease, illustrating the profound social fracture caused by the pursuit of raw wealth. Venezuelan gold has become a vital commodity in the global shadow economy, establishing complex and opaque supply chains. The immediate cause is the government's need for hard currency amidst crippling sanctions, leading to state reliance on exporting non-sanctionable resources, even if illicitly mined. This gold is often smuggled across porous borders into neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil, where it is laundered and integrated into the international market, making it nearly impossible to trace its origin. This geopolitical effect involves a web of international actors, including corrupt officials, transnational organized crime networks, and processing facilities abroad, effectively underwriting the ongoing human rights crisis in the Orinoco region. Beneath the statistics of tons mined and hectares deforested lies the devastating human cost. Miners, many of whom are minors or single mothers, work under appalling, highly dangerous conditions. They face constant threats of violence, landslides, and exposure to toxic chemicals. The lack of sanitation and medical care means infectious diseases, particularly malaria and dengue fever, are rampant and poorly treated. This cruel effect of desperation demonstrates how gold exploitation transforms human labor into a disposable resource, prioritizing short-term yields over the health and dignity of the workers who risk everything in the subterranean pits of the Guyana Shield. The cycle of poverty is self-perpetuating, trapping families in the mining economy. In recent years, the Venezuelan military has tightened its control over the major mining zones, supposedly to curb illegal activity, yet often substituting one form of exploitation for another. This transition marks the culmination of the cause and effect structure. State neglect led to chaos, which now requires heavy-handed state intervention, often resulting in institutionalized corruption. While some large-scale mining operations are nominally state-run, the lines between formal and informal, legal and illicit, remain profoundly blurred. The result is a highly volatile region where environmental destruction continues unabated, and the conflict over mineral wealth shows no signs of resolution, cementing the region's status as a humanitarian crisis zone. The history of gold in the Orinoco region is a stark warning about the long-term consequences of prioritizing extraction over stewardship. From the hopeful dreams of El Dorado to the stark, mercury-stained reality of today's crisis, the causes, colonial precedent, economic collapse, and institutional failure have compounded to create profound, tragic effects. As we look ahead, International pressure and transparent supply chain monitoring remain crucial components if this cycle of violence and devastation is ever to be broken. The future of this vital ecosystem and the fate of its people hangs precariously in the balance, demanding immediate global attention. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates.